Welcome to Insights for Manufacturing, the podcast that supports the UK manufacturing sector. Hosted by Jeff Beecham, the manufacturer's recruiter. Hello and welcome to Insights for Manufacturing. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, James Selka, who is the CEO at the Manufacturing Technologies Association. Welcome to the show, James. How are you today?
Very good, thanks, Jeff. Thank you very much for having me on.
You're very welcome. I've been looking forward to this conversation, and having been to the MACH show or the MACH exhibition last year, I was looking forward to talking about that and finding out what's in store for next year's show. So we'll get on to that in just a bit. James, we were discussing previously, this once in a generation opportunity for the UK to re-industrialize, if you like, and enable more reshoring. How big a part can technology play in growing our productivity and competitiveness?
Well, obviously, Jeff, it's absolutely fundamental, and I'm glad you've asked that. Obviously, not to represent actual proportions, but as we all know, there are three fundamental things that are needed to make a productivity improvement. One is technology, which is obviously what our members do, anything from very sophisticated machine tools, software, metrology, robotics, additive manufacturing machines. In fact, literally anything that goes into an engineering-based factory. Yep. And so if you look around your surroundings now, anything man-made that you touch has got our members' technology. It's where manufacturing begins. And as much as I would like to say that's the only thing you need, there are two other fundamental things that are also required. One, of course, is the skills to actually acquire and then subsequently deploy that technology within the factory. And also, of course, the finance to make it all happen. So That's my three-legged stool of improved productivity. And obviously, although that's not the same as competitiveness, it's obviously a big chunk for a manufacturer towards remaining competitive, not just in the UK, but obviously on an international stage.
Yeah. That's interesting. And I suppose those three, founding ingredients or sort of support mechanisms, if you like, they've got to be in the right mix and with the right people or organizations. And I suppose the timing of these things is critical as well. So it's almost got to be, everything's got to be aligned.
Very, very, very much so. But actually, there's some very good news because, as I'm sure you've noticed when you buy your new phone, every time there's a new generation in general of new technology deployed, it generally is far better in terms of its human-machine interface. So, in other words, a lot easier to use and obviously much more capable. I mean, it's not a surprising fact that the technology available today is more powerful than it's ever been. It's more affordable than it's ever been. And even with the increase in interest rates, it's still very cheap to completely re-equip your factory. And obviously, as you mentioned before, MACH is the only show, it's the national show in the UK, where it's all there working. We literally build a small town, etc., with 30,000 people of our community on site.
Yeah, it's amazing. Why hasn't technology been adopted at a faster rate in manufacturing to date? Because a lot of organizations and businesses and government have been sort of banging on for probably, the best part of 10, 15 years about automation, robotics, and all these wonderful new technologies. And it's, as you say, there's new things happening all the time, but then we're still way behind on productivity. What's the reason for this sort of lag in pickup?
Without wanting to depress you any further, you're absolutely right on the, for example, the robot and automation deployment. It's actually got worse, not better. However, the good news is, I think that companies are realizing that it's not a choice. We all know that we're living through a skills shortage, etc., etc. And also, automation is often designed to do the dirty and boring and sometimes hazardous parts of work in the factory.
Yeah.
And so although everyone might say, oh, the robots are going to take my job, what am I going to do now? In fact, the more competitive your company is, there's a lot of data to support the fact that you then get a better paid job yourself that is less boring, is less dirty, and is less potentially hazardous. So we really need to work together to dispel that myth that somebody's going to come and steal my job. Certainly it displaces jobs, but it also creates much better quality jobs. But to answer your question, actually, I'm sorry I went a little bit off piece there. We did a report with Lloyds Bank a few years ago, and I don't think anything's really fundamentally shifted since then. And there were several reasons why technology hadn't been deployed at the rate it should have been. Mm-hmm. And the main thing, 30% of respondents, or over 30% of respondents, said it was the lack of skills. So we come back to the skills thing. Now, obviously, there is many other reasons, and it's a complex one. But if we focus on skills and we're able to improve that radically, I think we would, remove a very important blockage in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I mean, I've read a load of articles over the last couple of years about, this perception that, robotics and automation are going to take our jobs. But in some circumstances, would it be fair to say that automation and robotics could actually be a saving factor for a business to actually keep the business open, to make it sustainable so that business has a future? Because if the businesses aren't becoming more productive, they're losing money, they're losing work to the competition, wherever that might be, and jobs can be lost if the businesses don't automate. So I think that ties in with the message you said earlier. Manufacturers have really got no choice now. But I think the people that have got this misguided view that it will take jobs, worst case scenario, if it's not embraced, quicker, jobs will be lost.
Yeah, beautifully put. I completely agree with that. And in fact, when you say what's not to like about automating the worst jobs in the factory, for example, and creating better paid ones, when I'm doing my retraining to be upskilled and therefore to be able to earn more, if for some reason that particular company can no longer employ me, I've suddenly become much more employable. Yeah. And there are several regional schemes that are actively, fully supporting, or at least partially supporting, upskilling of workforces all over the country. And it disappoints me when there are a lot of good schemes out there, and the amount of take-up is very patchy depending on which region we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, as you say, that there's a skills shortage. And I've had this discussion with a number of guests on the podcast and throughout my sort of day-to-day job as a executive headhunter, if you like, with leadership. But, how do we get more youngsters into manufacturing? There's some fantastic technology available. Some of it, these are my own words, it's mind-blowing. We've seen it, out on factory tours, at exhibitions like MACH. How could we use this as a driver to boost the uptake in manufacturing careers? Because I think the apprenticeships have slid, haven't they? They've sort of gone in reverse, and it's a desperate situation.
It is a desperate situation, but again, on the old every cloud has a silver lining, it also is an enormous opportunity.
Yeah.
And again, you ask very pertinent questions, and there isn't a silver bullet for it, for sure. But a few ideas we have are aligning government long-term policy better between departments. If our aspiration is to grow the content of manufacturing, which again, I don't think is a choice, because since Ukraine, since the pandemic, we've recognized the importance of sovereign manufacturing capability.
Yeah.
The key for onshoring and for the climate crisis is to ensure that we are offering world competitive service and products out of the UK supply chain. I think, I'm sure you're not old enough, but I am unfortunately old enough to remember the Buy British campaign in the 70s, when we were all encouraged to buy a very poor number of products that were not only expensive, but they were not competitive in terms of quality. And the last thing I think we want to do is go anywhere near that. But with the advent of the jaw-dropping technology that you described, it's not just productivity improvement, it's overall capability. So if you're talking about additive manufacturing, which I hope that we can touch on a little bit later, you can actually produce parts that are literally unproducible now, the sophisticated technology. And it is an incredibly exciting time. And also, if you go along to MAC, for example, and you say, oh, I want a bit of a productivity improvement, and the general public thinks that we're talking about 10 or 20% because it's the new piece of technology or equipment is just that little bit quicker. We are not talking about that at all. We are talking about factors improvement.
Yeah.
When I was still in industry some years ago now, the last machine I bought reduced the cycle time from 16 minutes to 3.5.
Yeah.
And that's not uncommon. So I just cannot understand why the UK manufacturing base isn't literally re-equipping their factories over time, but over a period of 5 years, because things are accelerating, they're not decelerating.
And that just puts an interesting vision in my mind, the way you've described that, and I often hear businesses and individuals talking about incremental change, and it's a journey. We haven't got to change everything. We've got to make some tweaks here or there. But actually, with some of the technology available, that incremental change, or those incremental gains, if you like, in productivity, could go from the start of a sort of slowish paced journey into an actual launch pad scenario, really, with the sort of figures that you're talking about.
Massively. And just going back to your previous question, because I didn't answer it, so I apologize for that. So how do we attract youngsters into what should be an incredibly exciting industry, one that pays way over the average in the UK, where there are many degree apprenticeships available where you effectively get paid to learn, sort of what's not to like about it. I think that people like us at the MTA need to do so much better on advocating what a great industry it is. Yeah. Now, obviously, we do try hard, but clearly we are still not properly succeeding. And believe me, we do often discuss it. Some of the things that we do directly is to run competitions, which the TDI challenge, which I'll touch on hopefully a bit later. But we invest hundreds of thousands in an education and development zone at MAC with lots of partners who do interactive stuff, Formula One cars. We had the Mars rover there last time, in order to try and inspire the young. And we literally bus thousands of secondary school students in, often supported directly by us, in order for them to be shown around by members apprentices, so that they can get a proper story from someone who's in the same age generation as they are. And we support women in engineering, we support STEM, we support industrial cadets, we support Imagineering, and we also continue to support and work with the MOD, because the MOD are one of the biggest trainers of engineering in the country, if not the biggest. And so we encourage our members to consider that and take on service leavers, because the life cycle of a service person is obviously different from his or her civilian counterpart.
Yes.
Also reservists, obviously, and even cadets. When you've got young people who are at school who are willing in their own time to go and learn different skills, from first aid to adventure training to signals, so some of the STEM subjects, and even learn to fly or fieldcraft or boats, the whole range of amazing activities are available for about, I think it's about £1 a week they charge. But they're hidden because these guys are at school. But don't you want to employ somebody who can be bothered to do something completely different off their own bat?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're what's the phrase? They're ripe for the picking, aren't they? You know,
They
because
are.
they're demonstrating that attitude and that desire to want to learn and set themselves up for the future. It's capturing those inquisitive minds early enough that they're not
Yeah.
put off or
Yes.
talked out of a career
Yes.
in creative or manufacturing or engineering.
Hundred
So
percent, 100%. And we were very honoured to be recently awarded the Armed Forces Covenant Silver Award
yeah,
for some of the work we do there. But we're delighted to have it. But the reason we do it is that from a business point of view, it's not a no-brainer. And from a doing the right thing as supporting our armed forces, it's also a no-brainer. So it's a
yeah.
real win-win.
Yeah. So tell me about the TDI challenge then, James. What is it, and how can UK manufacturing, really harness the sort of successes that the TDI challenge have already shown?
Yes, TDI Challenge is something we're particularly proud of, actually, because there are a number of engineering-based schools competitions, which are fantastic and many of which we support. The TDI Challenge is unique in really two or three areas. One is, and the most important in my mind, is it's very light touch for both the teacher and the student. So it's GCSE category and A-level categories.
Yep.
So basically, you do almost nothing other than the expected coursework, whether it's, I say, for GCSE or A-level. The other thing is that we insist on a commercial aspect to it. The UK, as a country, as we all know, have got a worldwide reputation for being amazing innovators, but
Yep.
less good at actually capitalizing on the benefit of all that innovation. And so trying to build that thinking in of viability with inventiveness, with the ability to apply technology and design and so forth, we think is really important. And thirdly, and perhaps slightly less uniquely, we offer amazing prizes from iPads to very large awards for both the student and indeed the school, because we recognise how important the school support is
Yeah.
in running the competition. And those who are lucky enough to get to the finals, we sort of designed this mini exhibition at Yamazaki Mazak, where you've got machines making machines, so that them and their teachers and their parents can all have a look around really what a modern factory is all about with the technology deployed.
Yeah.
And so we create this mini exhibition where the judges go around and they've really got to sell their ideas and their prototypes to all the judges as if they were at a commercial exhibition. So we're always astounded and delighted with the innovation that these students show. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that all of us can give this wonderful opportunity that's the TDI challenge, a lot more coverage and support. And it'd be interesting to see what the outcome is this year. What is there a date or a range of dates for this?
Yes, we're going out to the schools at the moment, and we're getting our initial entries, and the finals tend. I don't think the date's been properly set yet. It goes onto our website, but that will obviously be towards the end of the summer term.
Right. Okay. Well, good luck with that. What an exciting initiative, and look forward to hearing about that, and maybe showcasing some of the winners or the outcomes a little bit nearer the time. So you mentioned additive manufacturing a little bit earlier, and I suppose from a manufacturing process perspective, AM is arguably one of the fastest growing and evolving technologies, probably over the last 10 years or so. I'm excited to see its progress and development of the machines. I just love new technology. How do factories make their products? There's human skills involved, but the actual machine, the plant and machinery itself is just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I had a conversation back last year with Professor Kate Black up at University of Liverpool. I think Kate's also the CTO of Meta Additive, which was a spin out of the university. And it was interesting that there's a hugely adaptive and growing palette of additives and the range of applications. So where's all this going to end? I mean, AM, I think in the early days was used for sort of like rapid prototyping and sort of bespoke one-off type of things. But, is there more of a general hope and consensus that it will be adapted more widely for more, sort of medium and high volume manufacturing?
Very, very much so. Certainly, the age of industrialization and the take-up of AM is accelerating from a very small base. And I think that a lot of the industry, we perhaps over-talked it up over the years, and so it was in danger of being a little bit of a fad. But I'm really pleased to say that the technology is certainly mature enough to be applied in industrial applications. And if anyone is thinking about, well, when's it right for me to look at additive manufacturing and which sort and so forth, we actually have relaunched AM UK in conjunction with the MTC in Coventry, who are the National Centre for Additive Manufacturing. So they take care of lots of the technical aspects, and we're basically making a new trade association that covers the entire additive manufacturing supply chain, from material and software through to the equipment, through to the inspection, and through to people who use them, the bureaus, and also, of course, the academics who are closely associated with continuing to develop the technologies.
Yeah.
So I think that it remains exciting. I will say something a bit controversial, which is I personally view it as complementary more than going to displace subtractive.
Yep.
And I think that it will end up being approximately between 10 and 20% of the total manufacturing technology market in the industrial sense.
Yeah,
which is mainly metals based, and I think it's just, as you say, it's hugely exciting, and to be able to do small production runs and even larger production runs depending on the material that's being used and what technologies are being deployed.
Yeah.
The other thing that's going to explode over the next 10 years, I also believe, is automation. And every time we all think of automation, we automatically think of a robot, and understandably so.
Yeah.
Robots actually account for a very small proportion of automation solutions. And you will see not only our members who supply robots and automation solutions, our members who produce machine tools, for example, you'll find much more integral automation, again, on the basis that it's all going to be very easy to use.
Yeah.
Software based. So that, I think, is a very, very hot area at the moment. And also, of course, you're used to everyone talking about Industry 4 and the Internet of Things and so forth.
Yep.
But let's just forget all the labels for a moment. This ability to connect machines together to talk to each other, and also enterprises to talk to each other, which effectively is what we're talking about, most of the applications for that have yet to be invented. Because it's all enabling technology reliant on the user to go, how can I use this better? So the opportunities are literally endless.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of businesses have already sort of taken quite a few steps down the road of IoT devices in the factories. And when you were talking about, automation is going to be, a big growth area. I think the food manufacturing area in particular, and sort of packaging they've been, I suppose, I'm not sure trailblazing would be the right sort of phrase, but they've been very much in the sort of forefront of, using automation, for tasks that, 30, 40, 50 years ago were often done manually. Now, I can't imagine very many medium to large food manufacturing environments or packaging environments where the production lines aren't at least semi or not fully automated, and that may or may not involve robotics, but the whole production lines themselves, as you say, the software, there's a lot of pneumatics involved, PLCs, and technology, these complex production lines, have been on the market for, a number of years. They're still being developed all the time, and there's some, fantastic technology available. But perhaps some of the other, subsectors within manufacturing could sort of take a leaf out of the food manufacturing or the pharmaceutical sector, for example, where they've been, investing in automation for quite some time. So there's some good case studies out there, aren't there, from pockets of industry?
Very much so. I mean, you look at these huge farms that are run with, I mean, I know very little about it, but you see these programs on television. You see the amazing TV programs with automated tractors with LIDAR on that sort of water the plants selectively by satellite imagery, etc. It's just incredible. And as you said, pharmaceutical guys with all their automated labs, were a big part of helping to get us quickly out of the awful pandemic in recent years.
Yeah, absolutely. So the carbon tax, huge topic. What work is MTA doing to support your members in UK manufacturing on the carbon tax?
Yeah, well, we are obviously working very hard to make sure our members are fully informed with a range of events where we get experts to speak on various aspects of reducing energy, for example, where the technologies are, etc. But I'd just like to say the MTA members that I've been talking to recently, almost all of them are massively on the case and have been for many years.
Yeah.
So how do you make for example, a machine tool use less energy? Well, they're applying technology to that issue. And so if you buy the latest generation of machine tool, the chances are it will not only be a lot more productive, but it will also use considerably less energy.
Yeah.
And specifically that is in terms of applying proportional controls to the ancillaries, so pumps aren't running unnecessarily all the time.
Yeah.
Things like standby modes where you could selectively put things to sleep to suit your own purposes, again, to use less energy. So there's an awful lot of work going on. Even one of our members I was talking to, it will give you the carbon footprint of each part you make automatically. Yeah. So they're massively on the case, but also the ones I talk to say the way we think, not only making our own factories, obviously, as efficient as possible to use the least amount of resource as possible, we see our purpose as making our products really efficient because it has the multiplier effect. So all that equipment and technology imprint across the world, the less energy that uses, obviously it's got that multiplier effect.
Yeah.
And on top of that, of course, is the delightful fact that engineers are the ones who solve the world's problems. And the crisis, the climate crisis, is no exception. So all the windmills and the solar panels and heat pumps and all the things we're starting to see properly come through are all solved by engineers, and they all need making.
Yeah.
So that is not to be forgotten. And since our members are providing technology right at the beginning of manufacturing, we're really proud of that. We recently produced a green report, which is available for free to download from our website.
Yeah.
Which suggests that the opportunities for UK manufacturing alone around green technologies is up to about 1 million new jobs and up to 20 billion added to the economy.
Wow.
Which is just so exciting, because if you think of common sense, we want to reduce the amount of carbon tax, the amount of, obviously carbon tax you pay by using less carbon. But if we're shipping stuff all the way around the world from various places, for example, China, where the electricity is being generated using coal-fired power stations, we have to recognize that. And that is going to be such a huge need, not just an opportunity, a need for us to be able to competitively make things in the UK, So that's a massive opportunity. But I'm not saying that everyone's going to make everything themselves. What we're talking about is a partial deglobalization.
Yeah.
So when we do things so well in the UK, which we do, there will still be those export opportunities open to those companies for specialist products.
Are there any specific examples that you have, or any
Absolutely.
specific support you can describe for our viewers or listeners?
Yes, of course. Thank you for the opportunity. We have a fantastic team led by Karen Feingold with a specific export committee. So we get obviously all the industry input into it. So we, for example, organise UK presence at relevant overseas shows. If there are any grants applicable, we will help companies find them, access them. We will literally hold their hand if they haven't exported before. Yeah. We will send people out to the shows to be able to enable that. We have really good relationships with pretty much all the relevant international countries, our equivalents, the trade associations, who often run the shows. So there are lots of ways. We're also members of various people like the Institute of Export and so forth, where there are helplines available. And also we have a hotline into various government departments that can answer more specialist queries, particularly after we exited the European Union.
Yeah.
So we do an awful lot. We also, of course, welcome and encourage overseas visitors to come to MAC. And even though in the big scheme of things, it's not the biggest show in our industry, obviously, because those are the United States, and then we've got EMO in Europe,
yeah,
and so forth. We still attract a lot of international visitors because UK innovation is still a massive draw to those people overseas.
Yeah, and so it should be. Long may that continue. So, on the topic of MAC, then, you know, I was there last year with my son who works for me. Yeah, I mean, it's you know, what a great day out. Whether you're there to to look at specifying or buying new equipment or technology, or whether you're looking to learn or catch up with peers, colleagues, customers, suppliers, whatever the reason, it was a great. For me, it was a great day out. You know, there was so much there. I mean, really, a day probably doesn't do it justice. You've got to. What I found was I had to be so strategic with who I needed to go and see, who I wanted to go and see. But there was so much there. I don't think I got round everything anyway, and I could have easily spent another half a day there, really. But so for anybody that hasn't been to MAC, James, can you just give a quick overview as to what it is, who it's for, and what really makes it so successful?
Well, thanks for your really kind comments, Jeff. Massively appreciated.
You're welcome.
So MAC, of course, is the UK's only national show. And what does that mean? It's the only show where all the technology is seen working as if it was in a factory.
Yeah.
And as you know, engineers love to be able to see, hear, and feel things. And whilst there are a number of other very good shows within that touch on manufacturing and engineering and so forth that are excellent, we are the only show where we're bringing all this equipment in. We are building a small town.
Yeah.
And because we are owned by our members, which is the industry, it's owned by the industry for the industry. So lots of decisions we make where a commercial show would say, well, we're not going to make enough money out of that. Yeah. We are so lucky we're able to make long-term decisions. For example, investing hundreds of thousands in the education and development zone so students can actually come and see what the industry is about.
Yeah.
And, you know, the business conducted at the show from our surveys comes back at 150 million plus just over that week.
Crikey.
And many of our members use the show for their 2-year sales pipeline, because obviously it depends what they're selling. as to how quickly you sell it. But in recent shows, machines have literally been sold off stands, which has previously been unheard of. We've also introduced, because we recognise that people who visit MACH generally are interested in making their own manufacturing business more competitive.
Yeah.
And so we have a very active seminar program, obviously, but we've also started putting clinics on where you can literally walk up to somebody who is very knowledgeable about the subject. So at the last MACH, we had a tooling clinic, very kindly facilitated by the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre in Sheffield, where no one is pushing any particular brand on you. And so when you say, well, I'm using this tool for this job, they can say, well, you might want to try changing it for this or whatever, and make suggestions. Yep. So they can make, for almost no cost, changing a tool is literally nothing. It can make huge productivity improvements. So I don't want everyone to think that they've got to spend lots and lots of money buying a machine every time they visit MACH. There are so many different ways. And the next thing in 24, we're going to have clinics in robotics and automation, in additive manufacturing. So if you're a bit confused about where to start and you don't want to be sold to, we'll be putting clinics on around that, obviously, because AM UK will be sponsoring the AM zone. And really excitingly, after you were asking about the carbon tax, we're very conscious that the UK supply chain is still, surprisingly, rather invisible. Where do I go to place this business that I'm currently placing overseas? Where do I start with this?
Yeah.
And so we have really created a separate show out of one of the MACH zones, which is called Engineering Supply Chain Show, which is open for the middle 3 days of MACH, and decided, and it is only open to UK companies. So that again is completely unique.
Brilliant.
Which allows people, if they want to look at reshoring and don't really know where to start, there is a whole range of top-class UK suppliers going to be there.
That sounds amazing. I'm a very strong advocate for reshoring where possible. So there's a number of additional things then for the next show. I already decided on the back of the last one, I'm definitely going to make next year's. You've just, there were never any dates in my mind, but I'm even more keen for that. Not wanting to wish my time away, but can't wait for that to kick off, really. So just to round up then, James, for any business interested in what the MTA are doing, if they've got any thoughts of how they might need some assistance or some information that you can help them with, have you got any other special events or webinars or anything like that in the calendar for this year? Obviously, they're going to have to wait until next year for MACH, but what else have you got in the pipeline?
We've got loads. It's all on our website, so I won't advertise every event we're doing, but obviously our big part of the job of a trade association is to bring buyers and sellers together for the good of UK manufacturing. And we have, for example, what we call our forecast seminars, which are run twice a year. There's an update in April, and then the main one is towards the end of October and November, generally in autumn. And we spend a lot of money not only collecting data and producing it for our members in-house, but we also spend a lot of money with Oxford Economics. And so market intelligence is a massive thing that we do for our members so that they know where to spend their money in promoting their products. We also, of course, have energy reduction seminars. One's coming up in April. And many of our events, like our annual dinner in February at the Grosvenor, are open to non-members to become part of the community. You don't have to commit to become a member.
Yeah.
You can come along and any of our regional events that we've done 2 so far this year on different subjects, one in the Midlands and one in the North. So please just look at our websites, pick up the phone, talk to us. We're all about, obviously, bringing that community together. So our overall aim, and you've been a big part in helping this, Jeff, is really to make the nation more manufacturing minded. And I think if we can do that, I think we will recognise the enormous asset that UK manufacturing is, both financially and in terms of capability and creating jobs and helping us get to net zero, etc., rather than something that some people who don't know any better view it as a little bit old-fashioned and doesn't everyone want to work in professional services? And, I would really like us to help the whole nation become more manufacturing minded. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you today, Jeff.
No, you're very welcome, and very eloquently put. I'm totally supportive of that, and it's nice that there is a genuine, there's a huge amount of genuine collaboration and that sentiment of the industry, whether you call it manufacturing or engineering. It's in my eyes, it's all part of the same world. Businesses, associations, coming together to help the overall good, for UK industry, let's call it. Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show today, James. I think it would be worthwhile mentioning your website, which I believe is www.mta.org.uk.
And there's also separate websites coming out soon for AMUK, the EIA, ESC show, and the MAC show. So there's a whole lot of activity going on. So hopefully people can keep their eye out on social media, and we'll see when those are launched very shortly.
Brilliant. Look forward to that. Okay, so that wraps up today's episode. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. Thanks again to James Selka. Thank you for listening, and look out for the next episode of Insights for Manufacturing. See you next time, and bye-bye.